Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Welcome back to the Your Family Dog podcast. I'm Tina Spring, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Julie Fudge Smith, and my amazing friend who you're going to get to meet, Ruth Batchelor. All these episodes, Colleen and Julie and I have done all these episodes about dogs and sometimes a little bit about cats and how they integrate with dogs. But we've never done an episode like the one we're going to do today, where we're talking to someone who's really not a dog person. So kind of like dogs from the cat person's perspective. We'll, of course, be grilling my friend Ruth about why she doesn't like dogs and making her profoundly uncomfortable on that couch. So I want to introduce my friend Ruth Batchelor, who I adore, and tell you, okay, world, you're about to fall in love with another human. So no pressure, Ruth.
Well, hello. Thank you very much. I am so happy to be part of this podcast today.
Well, we're very excited to have you on today, Ruth. And of course, the first question on the tip of everyone who's a dog person is, why not dogs? Why cats? Did something happen to you? Did you have a bad dog experience? I had a little tip off. Tina said that you are actually, that your mother is a dog person. So it's kind of like, what happened? What malfunctioned here that you don't care for dogs as much as you do for cats?
We had dogs in the house always growing up, and they were just part of the family, and nothing really went wrong. I think what happened was, as I got older, I didn't care for the way that dogs that were not well behaved would jump when people come in. You know, I didn't like the responses of dogs as an adult. And I think when I first became a not dog person was when I lived with one as an adult, and that whole sound of the chewing and the licking and all of the sounds that came out of this dog when there was nothing else in the house to make noise, and here's this dog making all of this ruckus. I think that's what it was for me.
So It was one more thing. It was that. So, and to be clear, Ruth, every single dog owner hates that sound, right? Like,
oh, absolutely. Zuzu does that at night, and I will wake up and say, stop it. Just stop making that noise. So, yes, I get that. Nobody likes that noise. What I have to confess here is that my younger daughter's still a dog person, but my older daughter has 4 cats. And my grandson, my firstborn grandchild, said to me the other day, you know, Grandma, I think I like cats better than dogs. And you could have put a sword through my heart and it would hurt less. But, yeah, so if something happens, you know, people...
He also likes Grandpa better.
What?
He probably likes his grandfather better, too.
I don't think so.
Or his other grandmother.
You know, I'm the only grandmother he actually sees. So it's like, thanks. You know, he gave me the great nickname of Spike the Dragon. So it was from what was it?
It is a great nickname.
It is. It's from
I might introduce you as that next time.
You know, the little what is it? The ponies that, like, you know, can't remember what they're called. But anyway, they have all different, like, there's Pinkie Pie and there's Rainbow Dash and there's all these ponies, right? And they were really into them for a while, so that everybody in the family got to be named for one of the ponies, right? Well, in these little pony series, there's a little dragon called Spike the Dragon. And I didn't get to be a pony. I got to be Spike the Dragon. Everybody else was like Pinkie Pie and Cutie Butt and, you know, that kind of stuff. So,
no one listening to this podcast is surprised that you were not a pony, that you were a dragon.
Anyway.
And a magnificent dragon at that. So what I hear you saying, Ruth, is that it was some of it sounds like dogs make you uncomfortable when they're not managed or they're not well trained or they're not under control. And then And then after that, because there was some sort of like, I don't like this isn't comfortable for me, then we did what humans do. We start to build a case for all the reasons why no. And so then all the little things like, oh, there's hair on my clothes, and oh, that sucking sound, and oh, the scratching at the collar, and oh, the collar's jingling, and toenails on the carpet, and all that stuff, right? All that stuff. Which, by the way, all that stuff exists for cats. So I'm a dog person who has a cat. I love a cat. My cat's fine. But he does all sorts of things that annoy the snot out of me. Like he poops napalm, right? Like, for goodness sakes, poop outside, please. And he is an indoor cat, so that's not possible. It is as if he spends his entire day trying to figure out how to get as much cat hair as possible in my eyes, right? Like, he makes that horrible slurping sound. When you're petting him, he licks me with that rasp-like tongue, right? So if I didn't love him, all of those things would start to become part of my case against cats.
Well, I was thinking, the process is that we make cases for and against everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why I don't like this person. And in the same reasons why you don't like somebody, maybe the very reasons why you like somebody else. And so, we make all these cases for and against. And what it is I think sometimes the human experience is such that we don't have a really good reason why we either like or we don't like something. It just is. And
it just is what it is. I don't like coconut. It tastes like hair.
Yeah, I'm not wild about coconut either, but boy, give me a Boston cream donut and I'll probably, take you out for it. So, Tina, there's Tina, right. There's the Boston cream donut. Which one do I have to kill? It's going to be Tina, to get the donut. So.
Okay, so Ruth, are there some dogs, by the way, like you don't have to blow smoke, it's fine. Y'all, when Ruth comes to visit, I put my dogs away so that she doesn't have to deal with them, because I know they're not really her thing. Now, when she and her amazing love comes to visit, then he's a dog guy, right? So we get out the pug tackles Keith because that's what Keith wants, not because I'm not managing my dog, right? So I do try to adjust. Like, I'm aware that not everyone wants to be tackled by 4 dogs coming into our house. Like, it's uncomfortable for me. I don't like it either. But are there dogs that you have been more comfortable with?
Yes. I mean, there's actually a dog that lives in the apartment complex here. I only get to see him, every once in a while. It's a Rottweiler. I love Rottweilers. They are beautiful, and they're just like these big, gentle. I'm not sure I want one to drool on me on a daily basis. But he's a good, well-behaved dog, and I just love that he comes over, gets really close to me. I can give him some love, and then he goes back to his owner. I really enjoy the Gentle Giant, and it has a lot to do with their handler, right? How well does this dog behave? And I know that those are products. These dogs are products of their humans, right? And
to a certain extent, although to be fair, probably I think the last study I read said something like 85% of behavior is genetic, right?
Oh.
So there are going to be, interestingly enough, right, the Tupacake who are feral, who are aloof, meeting new people, you really like because they don't demand your attention a whole bunch. They take a while to warm up. Well, it turns out Rotties, Doberman, Pinschers, a lot of the breeds that you're talking about, these Gentle Giants, are breeds that as a part of their temperament, appropriate temperament, is that those dogs should be a little standoffish to the person. As that person, they become more comfortable with them. So that's actually breed type, right? An appropriate temperamented Doberman or Rottweiler should not run up and immediately give you hugs and kisses. That's not within the frame of what the breed standard would be. Where like a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel totally should do that. A pug should totally do that. So when Jordan was little, or even as a teenager, and going to people's homes, or you guys were going to family functions with people who had dogs, what would you want? Well, one, did people assume that everybody likes dogs?
Yes, people assume that everybody likes dogs, especially little dogs, because a little dog isn't going to hurt anybody. Never mind that they might run your stockings. Thankfully, we don't all wear stockings anymore. But no, yes, people assume that everybody loves dogs, and it's just not the case. There are some dogs that Jordan, my daughter, has enjoyed, but those were relationships that were built with dogs. It wasn't an instant thing. She seemed to have the same discomfort of a dog that came running at her at a door as I did. I'm just getting into somebody's house and that dog is on me. And what I really wish was that people could keep their dogs set aside for a little bit while the humans get to come in, say their hellos, and then the dogs can be introduced into the environment. And I have some friends that do that really well. And then I've had others over the years that just didn't.
You are so unreasonable. You want people to be nice to you when they come to your house? You want them to control their dogs? I mean, what kind of a crazy woman are you? It's just, but no, you know something? What I would tell you is that I feel the same way. And I am a total dog person. I really don't enjoy it when I walk into somebody's house and I am now just, a pile of slobber from top to bottom, or I've got something attached to the bottom of my leg. So I think that's a very reasonable request on your part, whether you are a dog person or not. It's very reasonable. It's kind of like, I remember when my children were littler, and I would never show people pictures of my kids on my phone, or I wouldn't talk about them unless they asked. Because my own feeling was, nobody's going to love my kids or care about my kids the way I do. So I'm going to wait for them to ask for information before I volunteer it. And I think that's kind of the way to think about pets at any time, whether it's a cat, a dog, a frog, a tarantula. For goodness sakes, Tina got introduced to a tarantula. That you should wait until somebody perhaps asks to meet your dog or your cat or your python or whatever it may be, because that's just courteous. That's just being kind to others and using some manners, which are not very common these days. And I think that it's just generally, I think if you just kind of assume that nobody's going to love your menagerie like you do, it helps to give you some perspective.
Well, and it keeps there from being accidents, right? Maybe not, I'm not talking about like some dog mauling you at the door, but a dog scooting out the door and getting stepped on or tripping someone, or goodness forbid, running away or getting hit by a car, right? There's hazards. I frustrate pre-COVID when I still went into people's homes other than electronically. I actually required that they have the dog away from the door and in some sort of management, either on a leash with another human tied away from the door, or in a crate, which is my preference, or in another room or whatever, just because the energy of that greeting is one where it can really be overwhelming and overstimulating for dogs. And even a really happy, excited dog can accidentally tip over into making the human uncomfortable, and then the human does something that the dog's not anticipating, and it's this big, huge ball of miscommunication. So I actually would tell you, I agree with you. I don't think dogs should be at the door when people are coming in. I don't think I've ever done that to you. I think the dogs have always been managed in some way so that you could come in and I could have my 38-second hug that I want every single time I see you, with peace, without, we make poor Keith wait outside, but then he gets a big hug too when he comes in. We're like, you wait outside, we need a moment, right? So I would agree with you. Like, I don't, even as a dog person, I don't want dogs rushing me at the door. It's not comfortable. It doesn't feel safe. And I can't even imagine doing that with little kids. That sounds like a terrible idea, right? Because we're like cornering the kid and then expecting behavior to be awesome in every single direction. I think a lot of times, I can remember when, I had foster kids that were younger, the kids were friends, but the adults were not necessarily friends. Like, we were kind of acquaintances. And so that would be a strained relationship for me to be feeling like I need to defend my kid at somebody's door over their well-meaning but overly exuberant dog that didn't really need to be at the door when my kiddo's coming in or playing anyway.
And it very much feels, to me, it's always felt like you don't want to correct somebody else's child for behavior, and you don't want to correct the parent for the child's behavior either. It feels very much like that with an animal as well. It's I'm judging you on how your dog is behaving towards me right now, or how you're it just doesn't feel good for all kinds of reasons, energy wise. It makes me put energy out it's not in my line.
Right, because even though you have a right to say, please, I don't really want to be mauled by your dog, or this makes me uncomfortable, the fact is, especially if you don't know the person well, it's a very hard thing to say. And, they may or may not take it well. If you don't know
right.
them, you don't know how well they're going to take it, and they may take it very personally. Because I know that people whose dogs have come from rescues. I have one client whose dog was in a hoarding situation, and she has provided it with a lovely home with, soft beds and good food and walks in the yard. And the dog doesn't know how to handle a good life. And she takes it very personally. So I think sometimes it's really hard to know what to say or how to say it without trying to convey to the person, look, this is not really you. I'm uncomfortable and you need to help me out here because I'm in your home. But they may not hear it that way. And it's really an awkward situation, and it really puts you on edge. And it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary for that to happen. But unfortunately, it does happen a lot. And I think a lot of it's unintentional. I think people just don't understand how their dogs act at the door. You would think that they would, but sometimes I think they don't actually see it. And I remember when I really came to understand that was when we had our first Bernese Mountain Dog, Buckley. It was just a big, huge, gentle sweetheart of a dog. And I remember I was coming around the corner, and he was in the driveway down in our carport, and I came around the corner, and he saw me, and of course you could go 1,000. I'd say, "Hi, Buckley," and then you could watch the processor. He had like a Pentium 95 processor. And it was like, you could see it going, 1,000, 2,000, oh, Mommy! Right? And then he came barreling down the driveway at me. And I went, oh, that's what it looks like. Because I'm usually on the other side. Right? And I went, holy cow. I know this dog. And I know that he's not going to jump. And I know he's going to stop. And I know it can. But it was like, that is a scary thing to have. Even though he's happy and he's bounding and he's a sweetheart, I was really glad he did that, because I, for the first time, truly understood what it looked like to have him running at you, because it's always been the other way around.
Well, and I don't even want a little dog running at me at the door. Like, I don't want to trip. I don't want to have the dog accidentally get out. So even my friends who know I'm a dog trainer, but like, at the time I was going to visit them, and it wasn't dog training related. They hadn't hired me, right? It's a really uncomfortable thing. So I do love that this needs to get added to like my list of things that I discuss with families about, okay, here's the deal. Like, nobody likes that. We don't, like, the dog trainers don't like it. People who are cat people who don't like pets in general, they're uncomfortable with it. So let's just train in a different option for the dogs.
Honestly, I don't think the dog likes it either. I think it becomes quickly uncomfortable and arousing for the dog. And I also, too, because apparently I'm an extraordinarily slow learner. So the way I really learned that was I was having, there was this buy at the home party for clothes, right? And some friends wanted to do a party with Cabby. And I said, okay, but they didn't have it. I said, you can use my house. I have class that night, and I will go to class. I'll take the dogs. You can come and set up, and then I'll come home, right? And this was all fine with me. I live in Granville, for goodness sakes. Anyway, very easy to do this kind of thing. So I come home from class, and I have my 2 dogs, and we walk in, and everybody's in the living room seated. They have their little plate of food, and they're talking clothes, and my dogs walk in and go, oh, well, look, people in the living room. Who knew? And they walked around, and they said hi. I took them upstairs. I crated them, and it was the most amazing night. What I really learned was they don't need to be at the door. What they need to do, if they're going to meet people, is wait till everybody comes in and is settled. Then I introduce them when everything's calm. Because the problem is, the doorbell rings, the humans jump up, we run to the doorbell, the dogs are like, oh, we need to run to the door. Whereas if everybody's come in and they're seated, and I bring the dogs in, the energy level is already lower. And so they can greet, and it's easier for me to get them out of there. So that was another learning experience for me. But it's not that they didn't get to meet the people, but let's do it when everybody's calm, including the people.
I have found that functions much better for me. I've had friends that have done it that way, and it feels more comfortable. And it does feel more comfortable for the dog as well. Completely. The energy level of the animal is much more calm, and I think there's less worry. There's less worry in the animal space. There's less worry on mine, for sure.
So are there other situations when you're at someone's house, or when you were doing play dates or whatever, that also felt uncomfortable to you, that pet owners, dog owners should know about?
I don't want to throw a ball for somebody else's dog.
Because even though the dog,
I don't want some strange dog to bring me a slobbery ball and expect me to work on it with them. That is another thing. If your dog is dropping the ball for me, could you handle that? I don't know that we ever really had any bad situations when it came to taking Jordan to play dates. I don't know if I just don't remember any traumatic events that happened, or anything that I was really uncomfortable with. I think we only had a couple of friends that had animals, and I think I knew the animal before Jordan was ever introduced to the situation, so I already knew what to expect.
Right. So pivoting off of that, so you knew the animals first. You were comfortable with those animals. You were comfortable with how well trained they are, with what their temperament was, how their owners managed them, all that kind of stuff. I assume those owners knew that you were not a huge fan of dogdom, right? I'm sure, like, your body language is stable around dogs, but it's really clear, subtle signaling of no thank you, which I actually love. We try to teach dogs that. It's why I don't allow stupidly over-enthusiastic greetings, because I do think that's important body language that dogs need to recognize from humans. It's not the person doesn't like you. It's they just are like, no, thank you. I'll say hello to you from here. So pivoting off of you knew the dogs and the families that Jordan was going to visit that had pets. Do you think where you allowed Jordan to go or what to do you think whether or not they had pets and you were familiar with those pets mattered to you, or do you think that just never was an issue?
I don't think it was ever an issue. And I don't think it was ever an issue because Jordan handled herself really well. And I'm not sure if I was concerned about an animal, it would have affected something. But whether or not somebody had animals was not something that crossed my mind before I said, yes, you can go stay at Susie's house. Okay. It wasn't a question. It wasn't something that was being discussed. Much like you aren't asking people that are coming over to your house whether or not they have allergies to cats or like dogs. It's just not something that crosses your mind. It wasn't something that crossed my mind to ask about the pets or to want to meet the pets before she had sleepovers.
So did Jordan ever complain about something somebody's dog did?
I think that she stopped seeing somebody once or stopped wanting to spend the night because of an animal. And it's really hard for me to pull that memory. I don't remember who it was, but just like if she was having trouble with somebody's sibling, per se, and she didn't want to go back because it was like a situation she didn't care for, she would just tell us, like, I'm not into it. And I think there was a dog that was bothersome that she just didn't want to go stay there anymore.
I think it's really important for both kids and dogs, and, well, I don't know much about cats, but cats have an agency to say, this is an uncomfortable situation for me, and I don't want to repeat it. So bravo for you listening to Jordan and not just saying, oh, it's fine, the dog will be fine, because it wasn't fine. And I think it's important. I think it's great that you gave her that level of agency to be able to say, this is not a situation that I care to repeat. I had an odd question for you. Have you ever had people who want to come over for a visit and they want to bring their dog to your house?
No, I've never had somebody want to bring their dog.
No. So that's actually a really good question. I have people, families constantly who are like, oh yeah, we go over to my sister's house and we take the dogs, and I've never done that stuff. Like if I go and visit somebody who has dogs, I don't take my dog. Like, no, I'm going to see the people. I'm not going to have a doggy play date and to have to navigate that particular brand of nut jobness. That's actually a really good question, Julie, because there are people who go everywhere toting a dog along with them, and I'm like, no, like that's so invasive.
Right, and they think, well, I love my dog, and he's fine with me, so he should be fine wherever I go. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think it's fair to him. I don't think it's fair to you, actually. And I don't think it's fair to whomever it is that you are bringing the dog into their space.
Well, and in this case, Ruthie's not afraid of dogs.
Right.
She doesn't, like, they're just not her thing. You want to talk about making people mad is have someone who's genuinely afraid of dogs being forced into a situation. So I think I've told this story before. I have clients here who the husband's mom is terrified of dogs. And when they were going to visit her, they were taking their dog with them. And I was like, that's not okay. Likewise, when mom comes to, let's board the dog. Like, you want to visit, like, it's not your mom's job who is genuinely afraid, right? Genuinely afraid of the dog. She's fine with being genuinely afraid of dogs. She doesn't want to like dogs. Like, she's not going, you know what, this is a point where we can get some personal growth. She doesn't want that. She's like, no, I don't. She doesn't like when a dog looks at her. I was like, then have her stay in a hotel or put your dog in boarding. Like, do not put that poor sweet woman in that situation. The same way that if I don't like tarantulas, no, I do not want to hold your pet tarantula. Like, but I will say, like, we dog people sometimes are a little invasive. I'm just saying, I'll put it out there. We assume everybody should love dogs as much as we do.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, it does take a lot of energy sometimes to manage dogs. Clementine she's 17 months old, like a couple days ago, and she's beginning to settle just an iota, just a little bit, a tiny little. Anyway, every once in a while we call her a good dog. That's an improvement, right? But when my grandson comes over, one of my grandsons, he does, Clemmy will run, Zuzu and Clemmy will run up to him. Now, they don't jump on him, but he doesn't want them that close. And so it's always a lot of management on my part, especially if they get here sooner than I think they're going to get here, so I haven't had a chance to get the dogs outside or, whatever. It's always some management level to, okay, this is where Peter is, so Clemmy, you're on this side of the gate. Peter wants to come into the kitchen, Clemmy, you're going to go outside. Peter wants to have a snack, Clemmy, you go in your crate. There's a lot of management so that everybody can remain comfortable, because I also want Clemmy to learn to be respectful of Peter. But the fact is that Peter needs to have a relationship with Clemmy, because Clemmy's going to be around for 10 years and Peter's going to be around for 10 years. So it's worth it to me to try and find a way for them to interact successfully together. But somebody who's just coming to my house for a visit, they don't necessarily have to learn to love Clementine. It just doesn't have to happen. It's kind of like when contractors come. My dogs don't have to meet every person that comes to my house. On the other hand, they do have to figure out how to have a peaceful relationship with my grandchildren, because I'm not giving up my dogs and I'm not giving up my grandchildren. So we have to find some way for this gap to be spanned.
So I think this speaks, for me anyway, to dog trainers having a number of different arrows on their flow chart of how to manage their dog when people are coming over, right? And I would actually argue that having a way, so to use the example of people coming to the door or mealtime, whether the person visiting and coming to visit is comfortable with dogs or not, my dogs are going to be managed during those situations so that we're not making anyone uncomfortable. The dogs aren't learning any nasty habits. They're not, drooling on Ruth's leg while we're eating our pizza. Because she doesn't like the slobbery ball, I'm pretty sure she doesn't want a slobber spot on her jeans either, right? Or their nose shoved in your purse or anything else. So for me, I think the message to dog owners, the big takeaway is make sure you have some strategy of how to keep your dog out of the situation at home, even though they're home. Have a crate, have a playpen, have gates, use leashes, whatever you need to do to make sure that person coming in or visiting is comfortable and that your dog's learning appropriate social etiquette. In my experience, it's a lot easier to loosen the rules after everything's settled down and everyone's familiar than it is to have something go kablooey and to have to put the milk back in the jar. I think that's a lot more difficult.
I think you're right.
Yes.
Okay, so Ruth, if you had to sum up 3 things that you wish dog owners knew, what would those 3 things be?
That's not an easy question. Summing up 3 things I wish dog owners knew. I can love you without loving your dog.
Beautiful. I love that. By the way, I can love you without loving your kid, right? Not you, but you know what I mean?
Right.
I can remember as a young person, I wasn't actually all that comfortable with kids. I am now, but I wasn't. I didn't enjoy them. They kind of freak me out a little bit. They make me nervous. So yeah, sometimes I was can we just go get coffee maybe? Or can we do something else? Because I don't actually want your toddler climbing all over me and giving me sticky kisses and spitting things in my hand.
I think that they're very similar. I think that people that say that they don't care for kids, people think that's a really awful thing to say. But I think it's for the same reason that I don't particularly care for dogs. It's not, and why some people are I don't really like kids, but I love your kid. It's my kid's well managed. It's the same kind of thing. I don't really care for dogs, but I like your dog. It's your dog is well managed.
Okay. So one is I can love you without loving your pet. Number 2 might be
I'm more likely to like your kid or your pet if they're well managed.
That's a good number 2.
And well behaved.
That's a good number 2.
I really do think number 2 is that I'm very much okay with a well-managed dog. Okay. I can have a relationship with a well-managed dog.
Okay.
That really is the second thing for me.
All right.
I love that.
I like the dog relationships that I have that have come out of well-managed situations.
Well, I mean,
I can't even tell you how delighted I was, how warming it was that first time that Marco loved me a little, and I thought, all right, this works. We have it.
Okay.
We have this thing.
Wait.
Yeah.
What about number 3? What would be the third thing you would want a dog owner to know?
I think those two things really sum it up. Because most of the anything that I would throw out as a 3 is covered by 2.
All right. So very good.
I would add a third, and actually you accidentally did it talking about Marco, that great relationships are built over a whole bunch of short, small, calm, relaxed experiences. They're built in moments. They're not built in big, huge swaths of time. It's itty bitty little bites of the apple until everybody's comfortable.
Okay. I think that's great.
Yes, I agree.
I think that's great.
But I'm going to follow my guest lead.
All right. So I think then if we were to summarize it, what we want to say to dog owners is that it applies not just if a cat person's coming over, but pretty much if anybody's coming over. If you want somebody to love you and your dog, then you have to accept the fact that they might not love your dogs, and that's okay. And that if you want them to like your dog, then you have to make your dog manageable and presentable and kind to the person who's coming through your door. And allow the person who's coming through the door and the dog to make a decision of exactly how much time they'd like to spend with one another. And if it's just a moment here and there, that's probably going to build into a relationship. So everybody should have some agency here.
Right, but also remember, your guest isn't going to tell you. They're not going to come out and say, I don't want all that slobber on me, or I don't want all that hair on me, or whatever I don't want to throw the ball, right? So some of it, I would almost say, is ask more questions.
Well, in our house, especially when we had Bingley, who was sort of, let's put it this way. We used to say that Hudson, the golden retriever, was a pleasure fetcher. He would play fetch for pleasure, whereas Bingley was a competition fetcher. Okay, he would play until the world would come to an end. And so what I would always tell people is, don't throw the ball. What did he do? Don't throw the ball for my dog, because if you do, you are going to be stuck throwing it for the rest of your life. So I think it's okay to be proactive and to say to people, you don't need to do that. You don't need to throw the ball. In fact, I would recommend that you don't throw the ball, because if you do, then I'm not going to have a chance to visit with you, because that's all you're going to be doing is throwing the ball for the dog. So I think that it's okay for owners to take that step forward and say, hey, I've got some parameters here. I'm not going to force you to throw my dog's ball. I'm not going to force you to play with them. I know you're here to visit me. And maybe if dog owners take that attitude of what is the purpose of this visit? The purpose of this visit is for me to visit with the person, not for the person to come in and pet sit my dog. And I think if you take that as your underlying guideline, then you're more likely to have a successful interaction, because you're going to be paying much more attention to how do I make this successful for the person and not necessarily successful for the dog.
So by now you've all completely fallen in love with my friend Ruth. And I am eternally grateful. I think it's important for dog people to have non-dog friends and to ask questions. It is very important to me that Ruth is comfortable visiting my home and having time together. And if that means that my dogs have, a stuffed frozen Kong in their crate for a good portion of the visit, I'm okay with that, and I'm down with preparing them for that. So I just want to thank Julie for indulging me having my friend come on and talk about this. And I want to express my deep gratitude to Ruth for being willing to come and be grilled by these crazy dog trainer people on the Your Family Dog podcast.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. And we'll see you all. And be sure, if you have a chance, to like us and share us with others on your social media or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. and we'll see you all next time on Your Family Dog.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting idea? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.